The security badge in my hand blinked red instead of green. One soft error sound. That was it. I stood there for half a second longer than necessary, as if the system might suddenly remember who I was. It didn't. Behind me, people kept walking, coffee cups in hand, laughing, scrolling, living their normal Monday morning lives. No one noticed the moment my career was quietly erased. "Sir?" The security guard's voice was polite, practiced, not curious at all. I nodded once, stepped back, and slipped the badge into my pocket like it still mattered. 20 minutes earlier, I had been called into a glass-walled conference room on the 9th floor. The kind with city views meant to remind you how small you were, compared to the company logo etched into the wall. 3 executives sat there already. No HR introduction. No small talk. "This isn't working out," the managing partner said, hands folded. No anger, no regret. Just finality. They said performance alignment. They said strategic direction. They said culture fit. What they really meant was, "You know too much, and you don't belong to us anymore." I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't even ask questions. Somewhere deep inside, a switch flipped from shock to clarity. When you hear lies wrapped in professional language, your body knows before your mind catches up. "You'll receive severance details by email," someone added. Another voice. "Security will escort you out." That part always surprises people. How fast it happens. Years of loyalty reduced to a cardboard box and a walk past. People who suddenly can't meet your eyes. By 9:12 a.m., I was outside the building. No badge. No access. No job. I sat in my car and stared at the glass tower where I had spent the last 6 years building systems, fixing problems no one wanted to touch, cleaning up messes executives pretended didn't exist. The same people who praised my calm under pressure had just decided I was a liability. What they didn't know was that I hadn't been building my future inside that office for a long time. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No messages. Then one notification slid across the screen, quiet, almost polite. Calendar reminder, 11:30 a.m. final call, private. I smiled for the first time that morning. That call wasn't with them. That call was with the people who had been watching from the outside while my own company slowly tried to suffocate me. See, for the past 8 months something had felt wrong. Numbers that didn't reconcile. Decisions that didn't make sense unless you looked at them from a very specific angle. Money moving just fast enough, just quietly enough, that only someone obsessive would notice. I noticed. Not because I was suspicious, but because I was thorough. Because I had been taught early in my career that if you understand the system deeply enough, it eventually tells you the truth. When I raised concerns, they smiled. When I asked questions, they delayed. When I pushed harder, they documented me instead of the issue. That's when I stopped talking and started preparing. I documented everything. Timestamps, version histories, parallel reports, off-platform backups. And then, quietly, I took meetings after hours. Not in conference rooms. Not on company calendars. On neutral ground. With people who didn't care about protecting reputations, only assets. By the time they decided to fire me, the deal had already been moving for weeks. They thought removing me would end the problem. It didn't. At 11:27 a.m., my phone rang. No corporate ringtone. No forced enthusiasm. Just a calm voice saying, "We're ready." The call lasted 18 minutes. 18 minutes when numbers were confirmed, signatures acknowledged, and control transferred. No drama, no raised voices. Just precision. At 11:58 a.m., I hung up. At 12:01 p.m., the press release went live. $700 million. That was the figure splashed across financial feeds before I even finished my coffee. Analysts called it a bold move. Reporters called it unexpected. Internally, phones started ringing off the hook. At the same time, 2 floors above where I used to sit, executives were being pulled into emergency meetings they couldn't cancel. By 12:30 p.m., regulators were involved. By 1:15 p.m., access to call systems was locked. By 2 p.m., the same building that had kicked me out was in full damage control mode. I didn't go back. I watched it all from a quiet cafe across town, sunlight coming through the window, my phone face down on the table. For once, I didn't need to respond to anything. They had power when they controlled the room. They lost it the moment they assumed silence meant weakness. And the strangest part, I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady, like someone who had finally stepped out of a burning building without needing to explain the smoke. Because sometimes the story isn't about revenge. Sometimes it's about timing and knowing exactly when to stop, playing by rules designed to protect people who never planned to protect you. By the time the news hit internal channels, my phone finally started vibrating again. First message came from a number I had deleted months ago. "Where are you right now?" No name needed. I knew exactly who it was. 5 minutes later, another one. "We need to talk." This escalated fast. I didn't reply. Inside the building I'd just been escorted out of, panic was spreading in layers. Not loud panic, the dangerous kind. Quiet conversations behind closed doors. Legal teams pulling archived files. Executives realizing too late that the person they removed had been the one holding the structure together. At 2:40 p.m., a third message arrived. "This isn't how it was supposed to happen." That one almost made me laugh. Nothing ever happens the way people in power expect, especially when they confuse compliance with control. I finished my coffee, paid the bill, and walked out into the afternoon sun like I had nowhere urgent to be. For the first time in years, I didn't. The irony wasn't lost on me. That morning, I was disposable. By afternoon, I was unavoidable. At 3:10 p.m., a mutual contact forwarded me an internal memo that wasn't meant to leave the firm. Subject line in all caps: "Emergency response. Do not forward." It outlined immediate cooperation with federal investigators, a temporary freeze on certain accounts, and a strategic pause on leadership visibility. That phrase, strategic pause, was their way of saying people were already being advised by lawyers not to speak. I sat in my car and let that settle. They hadn't fired me because of performance. They fired me because I didn't flinch. People like them survive on hesitation, on employees who see problems but look away, who ask safe questions and accept dangerous answers. I had done the opposite. Quietly, methodically, and that scared them. At 4 p.m., a call came I'd been expecting. Unknown number. Private line. I answered. "We need you to come in," a voice said. Controlled. Careful. "There's been a misunderstanding." I almost told him no. Almost. But curiosity won. "Where?" I asked. "Neutral location." Not the office, of course. We met an hour later in a private conference suite downtown. No logos, no badges. Just glass walls and people suddenly aware that titles don't protect you once. Momentum shifts. The managing partner didn't sit at the head of the table this time. He didn't sit at all. "We didn't realize the scope," he said, choosing words like they were live wires. "You should have come to us." I looked at him for a long moment before answering. "I did," I said. Multiple times. Silence. Someone else cleared their throat. "This deal, it complicates things." "No," I replied calmly. "It clarifies them." They offered options, reinstatement, consulting roles. Quiet settlements wrapped in generous language. Every sentence was an attempt to rewind the day. That clocks don't move backward. You made your decision at 9 a.m., I said. The consequences didn't start at noon. They just became visible. One of them finally asked the real question. What do you want? I leaned back. I want distance, I said. From people who believe authority replaces accountability. That ended the meeting. By the end of the week, the firm's name was trending, not for growth, not for innovation, but for investigation. Clients issued cautious statements. Board members stepped down for personal reasons. The same HR department that prepared my exit package was now fielding subpoenas. And me? I didn't post anything. I didn't celebrate publicly. I didn't tell my story until now. Because the lesson wasn't about money. The $700 million deal was inevitable, the result of years of quiet work done without applause. What mattered was the timing. The reminder that the moment people decide you're expendable is often the moment they stop protecting themselves. They assumed silence meant submission. They assumed professionalism meant obedience. They assumed I would disappear quietly. They were wrong. And if you've ever felt that shift, that moment when a room decides you're no longer useful, remember this. Sometimes being pushed out isn't the end of the story. Sometimes it's the exact pressure needed to reveal what was already in motion. If this resonated, stay with me. There's more to tell, and not every ending comes with a warning.